So Pretty Little Liars is back again. Kinda. If you weren't aware, the show has already had 2 or 3 offshoots at this point, and this is just the latest in the swell of insanity. And this one is called Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. It's a weird reboot, offshoot slasher Pretty Little Liars with a little bit more emphasis on horror, I guess. Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa is one of the showrunners slash creators. If you are not familiar with my friend Friendly Space Ninja, who I think has already made his video on this, it's probably already live by now. He has gone on some pretty intense rants about his personal menace, Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa, which I definitely recommend, but because of his involvement, this show is somehow also in the Riverdale universe.
What's come before me? Combined with the gifts!
That's what's going on in Riverdale right now, by the way, in case you didn't know. And even though this show is taking place in the town of Millwood, Rosewood is still mentioned, as is the Radley Sanatorium, which is now a hotel. Eddie Lamb makes a brief appearance as a recast character, but it is him. And it is also directly confirmed from them that this is also related to the original Pretty Little Liars, which means that the original Pretty Little Liars is also in the same universe as Riverdale, and I don't like it! I'm not saying that Pretty Little Liars was great, but that doesn't mean that I want it in the same universe as, like, the serial killer Gene. So knowing all that, I wasn't exactly expecting the best from this series, and in many ways it lived up to those lack of expectations. Now, a lot of people were saying that this show was really great. It really hooked them from the beginning, but for me, the first episode of the show is almost unwatchable. I know I've seen worse, but there's something about this that it was a struggle. The dialogue made it feel like the show was aimed at like 9 to 12-year-olds, except it starts with someone yeeting herself off the rafters to her bloody death in a warehouse. Just a massive tonal disconnect with bad writing, rough acting as a result of that bad writing. There just wasn't enough substance in that first episode to hook me, and if I hadn't planned to cover it, I probably would have tapped out. But because I was traveling away from home when this show first started airing, I didn't have access to it on Crave, which is where it's playing in Canada. But that was no problem thanks to today's sponsor, Surfshark. All I had to do was connect to a Canadian server location when I was in LA, and boom, I was good to go with all that Crave Pretty Little Liars goodness. Surfshark has thousands of different server locations all around the world that you can quickly connect to securely across all your devices with one account. That means your internet thinks you're in whatever location you're connected to, and you can use it to take advantage of all of their region-locked content. I use it all the time to watch things on Hulu because it's not available here, and then also just to watch a bunch of different movies and shows on Netflix that don't happen to be available in Canada. And you can take advantage of all this region-locked content as well if you just let Surfshark open up your world, because life's just too short not to enjoy everything it has to offer. It's super fast, secure, and if you use code JEDI, you get to save a whopping 83% off your subscription, plus get an additional 3 months free. And if somehow that wasn't good enough, they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not completely satisfied, so make sure to check out Surfshark for yourself by clicking the link in the description below. Also, as a warning, there is some heavy subject matter here in terms of assault. They don't really show anything, so I won't be showing anything, and I won't linger on anything, but just as a heads up. So much like Pretty Little Liars, and perhaps even more egregiously, this show is also filled with a bunch of empty leads, shitty audience bait, and just the right amount of unanswered questions to ensure that this show can continue for many years to come, because of fucking course. This show was largely just rough. It like picks up for a little bit and then just tanks again. So by the end, the last thing this really ends up feeling like is Pretty Little Liars. Which is fine, I guess. It can have its own identity, even if that identity is the Scream Show, but more annoying and somehow worse quality with some questionable editing. Like, come on, this girl looks right at the camera and you couldn't just cut a couple seconds early? It does feature a lot of really great music though, a lot of stuff from like all over different ages, including a creepier version of the intro PLL song. Better lock it in your pocket, taking this one to the grave. There are some very interesting storylines, one I don't think I've ever seen explored in a teen drama ever. Please correct me if I'm wrong, if it is like ripping a different line, but that was a very interesting direction to go. We will get to that. But as is the way, we have a mysterious texter tormenting our main group of girls, one even using the "what's your favorite scary movie" line to antagonize the movie fan of the group. But it all builds together into one story where they are being punished for the sins of their mothers. Yes, these main girls do not actually have any direct connection to what this A character is seeking revenge for. While the show is mostly set in the present, the first episode starts at the turn of the century, New Year's 1999, which we will get to, but even when the show is firmly set in the present, it feels like it was filmed in the past. Like just a look of it and the filming style they chose to go with. So even though I was fully aware of the time jump, when I saw this like coming out day poster, my brain had like a split break where I was like, wow, what a very forward school, even for the late 90s. But no, it's 2022. Also, while I have not been a teenager for a long time, I still feel that there is a major disconnect that seems to suggest that the average teenager doesn't know who Jordan Peele is or aren't aware of the movie Get Out, which results in the movie/horror nerd of the group having like a double feature of Get Out and Us to educate the students on like modern filmmaking. I don't know, I feel pretty sure that Jordan's got the youth demographic on lock, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But let's hop in, as mentioned, in 1999 Millwood, Pennsylvania, where we start with a young girl stumbling her way through a Y2K party, seemingly injured, desperately asking for help from a group of girls, immediately being shrugged off before launching herself to her death from the rafters.
Can you see me now? Angela? No! Stop!
And boom, we are back in the modern age with each of those mean girls now having a daughter. Super convenient that they all just happen to have daughters and only one daughter each, and that they all happen to be roughly the same age, going to the same school. Nice. But the past comes back to haunt them when one mom gets a letter taped to her door addressed to Davy with the A capitalized in red because it's a new A. And in the letter is a flyer to the party the girl killed herself with a message warning her to watch out, and literally while her daughter Imogen is in the process of having a BFF followed in a room, she kills herself in a tub. Rough fucking times, man. Also, Imogen is the Free the Pea kid from Bridge to Terabithia. And I guess at some point she freed the pea on a pregnancy test because she's got a baby on board. No one comment on that segue. We're gonna keep going. So this immediately had me thinking, if the mom's death wasn't a murder made to look like a suicide, fuck her to hell. Killing yourself when your daughter is literally in the other room having like a major stressful moment while she's also pregnant? Leaving her alone to deal with this going forward? Either way, whoever left the note clearly knows that the moms had some involvement in the girl that died's torment. Imogen's mom, Davy, seemed like the ringleader of the group, and we'll learn to find that the girl's name was Angela. But instead of going directly at the moms, which would make the most sense, it's very quickly apparent that A is interested in punishing and tormenting the girls, and it's not specifically to get to the parents, because A doesn't want the kids to spill the beans to them, they're just independently being fucked with. Like, in ways he is causing torment to the moms through the daughter's actions, but not really, and I still just don't understand why he would have given Davy the early heads up. So from here we are introduced to our main characters who are all brought together in some like weird evil Breakfast Club-esque scenario, which I'll get to, but first, who are they? And what are their inner secrets? While it is an ensemble cast, Imogen here does seem to have the edge for group leader. She's gonna be the driving force for trying to figure out what's even happening, and it's not even necessarily to try to figure out who A is, it's trying to figure out like what happened to her mom, how it ties back to their parents' past, who Angela is. It will later be revealed that her pregnancy is the result of a assault, which becomes something else to solve. So on top of trying to get to the bottom of the Angela mystery, who A might be, she feels pretty confident that her mom wouldn't abandon her. Even the father that she doesn't speak to confirms that the one thing he feels sure of is that Davy never would have left Imogen alone. So because of her mother's death, she's now staying with Tabby, who is our resident film nerd who uses a few too many quotes and references on top of buzzwords that don't always seem to apply to the situation that she's using them in, but I'm still actually quite cool with her.
Stay in your Tabby.
Wes, Fincher, Zodiac. Don't.
Yeah, man, you never get out of the car to approach the creepy weirdo. And other than Imogen, her best friend is Chip, the other resident movie nerd who has a crush on her that she does not reciprocate.
Chip is not my boyfriend. He's more like my gay best friend who happens to be straight.
Oof! Also, her boss at the movie theater is a creep. At least this show is taking the age gap relationships are bad actually stance for once. But they do make sure to let us know that he's not just this guy in his like early 20s, maybe mid 20s, which many of these shows end up presenting as okay. He says he's the same age as Ari Aster, who is 36.
Sort of annoying that we're both the same age.
At one point later, he says that he's in his late 20s, but that seems like more of a lie to downplay the situation he's in, which still isn't good. But he said Ari Aster, and it didn't seem like a joke. Maybe he meant he was like the same age as Ari Aster was when he came out with Hereditary, but that would still place him between the ages of 30, if I'm being very charitable, and 32. Again, not to say that it wouldn't have still been creepy if he was in his 20s, I'm just saying that he said he's in his 30s. He not only uses his boss position against her for power, but also the fact that he has film school connections. But the show doesn't actually do anything with it, and he just slimes on. Outside of that, which would absolutely be enough, Tabby is dealing with some significant trauma. She was assaulted at a party, but doesn't really have any memories of the situation, so she's desperately trying to figure out who did it, and she's like setting up GoPros in locker rooms. It's also something that's affecting other areas of her life, as you would expect. She picks a fight with this Tyler guy, both because she's trying to protect friends and trying to figure out if he's made it a habit of taking advantage of young girls. Let's go, Tabby! And then starts spilling over into her classwork. This idiot turned up naked to her gender-flipped psycho, which is completely taking control away from her in that moment for something she was trying to film to regain some kind of control. Then the whole situation with her goes a step further when she actually proposes a rape revenge movie as a school project, you know, a subdued one appropriate for high school, which honestly isn't the worst way to process trauma. Like, look at I May Destroy You by Michaela Cole. And all those issues kind of compound when she realizes that the same thing happened to Imogen, which is what resulted in her pregnancy. Noah is who I thought was our resident delinquent. She rocks up to school with an ankle monitor. She's got to submit daily urine tests. She's doing community service. But you find out that she actually took the blame for her mom's drugs so she wouldn't lose her job as a nurse. And to add insult to injury, her mom didn't kick the habit and has actually been stealing medication from patients. So once A jumps into the mix, he forces Noah to tell the hospital. She obviously loses her job, then refuses to get clean because she's a shitty mom and looking for any excuse not to get clean. I realize that drug abuse is a serious disease and she needed professional help, but I can still call her a shitty mom for it. At least she has a caring boyfriend though, who also ends up needing to get clean because he's on steroids. Highs and lows of high school football, am I right? Farron's our hot bitch, take no shit badass, the perfectionist dancer. She's just been given the role of the Black Swan who finds out her mom made her go through a series of scoliosis surgeries that doctors had advised against, which ended up being a pretty serious thing for her because she's been dealing with like lifelong pain as a result of it, and her mom's constantly been encouraging her to get even more surgeries to clear up the scars. And instead of even being concerned about her pain, it really just turns into a situation where Farron's forced to stop dancing for a while, otherwise she could cause long-term damage. Obviously setting her career back immensely because this is something she was planning to pursue. So this all culminates into her directly calling out her mother in her bio for Swan Lake, which her mom does not take well, ends up getting into an accident and then blames Farron for it. Just excellent parenting here all around. Like by the end she does come around, but yeah, no. Finally, Mouse, the terminally online of the group. Her moms are overprotective, particularly the one that was part of that group that tormented Angela, to the point that they've never let her go trick-or-treating. She hasn't been able to go to any of the carnivals. Just lots of things she's never been allowed to do, which means that she replaced a lot of that time being online. Which is where she starts talking to Steve, an older man who lost his daughter, and now Mouse is basically role plays her for him. She says it's to give parents one last memory of their kid, but then she keeps souvenirs and starts looking to him for comfort. It seems like they're suggesting that she's desperately seeking out some kind of father figure, that she's looking for someone to fill in some of those gaps of her experiences that she wasn't allowed to have, but it's very weird. He quickly starts pushing boundaries, showing up places where Mouse might be hanging out, where she doesn't want him to be, really trying to use her as his daughter, to the point that it actually starts to scare her and she tries to back away. Like, it's not sexual, but it still somehow ends up feeling very predatory in that way.
I come here all the time, Rachel.
Stop it. Steve, I'm not Rachel.
So that whole situation was creepy and weird, but also super interesting. Like when he showed up, it wasn't like desperate, it felt menacing.
What? No.
What? No.
But it ends up leading to the reveal that Mouse was almost kidnapped as a kid, kinda. Apparently Elodie was supposed to be a surrogate for a couple that couldn't have kids and then didn't give Mouse up. And I'm pretty sure there are massive legal documents preventing this kind of thing from happening because obviously there is a legal parental right from that father. But you know what? whatever. Eventually, Steve kind of snaps when the cops let him know that they found Rachel's remains and basically kidnaps Mouse for a bit, dresses her up in Rachel's clothes and seems to be ready to just bunker down with her, but it's fine. Elodie has a tracking location on her, so they find her pretty quick. The point being, there is lots of ammo for A to use against the daughters to get through to the mothers or to pin the daughters against the mothers. I also want to say really quick that Mouse is dating a trans man who you don't find out is trans until the 8th episode, and it kind of just feels like it came out of nowhere, but on the one hand, that is kind of nice that he's just been allowed to exist as a character. Pretty Little Liars has been called out for having any LGBTQ plus character have that be like their entire identity, so it was just nice not to reduce Ash to that as a personality trait until they reduce Ash to that one personality trait.
Ash, as a young trans man in Millwood.
God, most of the parents are trash in this. But outside of A as an entity, as our like central villain, which I will formally introduce in a bit, there are a handful of other antagonists. The current school-age bitch is Karen. Yes, they literally named her Karen. She used to be Imogen's best friend, but after her boyfriend makes a move on Imogen, they fall out.
Nobody wants your pregnant, tragic ass here.
She also has a twin named Kelly, so double the fun. And Karen's just a general menace. She literally implies that Farron only got the role of the Black Swan because she's black.
Jerry probably had to make you the Black Swan because you're the only girl who's what?
But it seems like her and her sister are prepped to do some completely unhinged shit. Defacing her own Spirit Queen posters when Imogen decides to run against her to make it look like Imogen and Tabby did it. Puts a dead rat in her own bag to make it look like Mouse messing with her. Switches out Noah's drug test to make it seem like she was doing drugs again. Puts razor blades in her own ballet shoes to make it seem like Farron was trying to sabotage her, which literally makes no sense because Farron already had the lead role in the ballet. Or at least the girls think Karen did all these things to herself because Karen instantly pinned the blame on them and they know they didn't do it, which is why they decide to
kill Karen Beasley.
Yeah, no, they don't do that at all. I thought it was almost gonna get really interesting as a show. We will get to what they did in a bit. Obviously, it was A. We see a janitor stumble across his workbench with all the stuff getting prepped. A ends up sending each of the girls videos of the crimes being committed. But the point is that Karen thinks she's at the center of a series of organized attacks, and the girls think she set them up to all get detention. Literally because they wouldn't vote for her for Spirit Queen.
I dared to challenge her, and you all made it clear she won't be getting your votes.
Oh my God. But there is no evidence that any of these people did anything. You find a dead rat in your bag and the girl who happens to be named Mouse just gets blamed with no proof. And if you actually thought she didn't, wouldn't you give them a little bit more than detention for like killing an animal and then putting it in someone's bag? And Noah's wouldn't have been detention, it would have been a parole violation. At this point, Farron suffered the worst consequences because it lost her the role of Black Swan. This whole situation feels dumb. This is a very dumb way for A to try to get all these girls together in detention to meet up. So on top of Karen Beasley, we have Sheriff Beasley, her dad, because why not? Jack Hyde of 50 Shades himself, Whitney from Smallville, who Noah catches getting a blowy from another community service attendee in his cruiser. This will amount to nothing. Noah just ends up using it as leverage to go to the dance. He's an incredibly one-dimensional baddie who not only terrorizes the girls, but his own family. He's pretty unhinged the whole time, but gets particularly bad towards the end of the series, and his emotions the entire time are just like bitter hate and unhinged. But that brings us to Michael Ayers.
The fuck are you supposed to be?
A, who as per usual pops up through a series of anonymous text messages and vaguely ominous lingering. Farron gets one about being cast as the Black Swan and then the whole screen just shifts to a Dutch angle. It's fucking art. But my personal favorite is the one Imogen gets. While she's in class, she just gets look up. And we just see this Michael Myers looking motherfucker with the van before he literally disappears in seconds. Peak horror, love it. If it was just him that disappeared, fine, but him and the van? Also, just imagine she hadn't checked her phone and he was just... Also, just imagine she hadn't been checking her phone and he was just standing like this for hours. I know the wig isn't red, but from a distance, this literally looks like some deformed Chucky mask on Michael Myers' body. And he just continues to pop up, creeping on these girls all over the place, spontaneously disappearing. He gets a nice little slasher kill in that first episode when the janitor stumbles across his workbench. And my favorite part about that kill is that he slashes this dude's throat to the point that he's gurgling because, you know, vocal cords, blood in the throat. But then it pans away from him just perfectly screaming. It's It's the small details that make me laugh the most, you know? Which brings us to the conflict. I gotta take that off. It's getting toasty in here. So as established, the focus of everything is Angela. Her life, what the mothers did to her, how she was treated, and what was the final straw. So my immediate guess for A is mystery sibling, because it's usually always a mystery sibling, and it seems pretty obvious that it has to be someone with an intimate connection to Angela. But outside of what seems to be a motivation for revenge and messing with the girls for the sins of the mothers, A seems to have some kind of moral framework. Basically, A seems to hate anything that Angela was the victim of, so we know she was the victim of extreme bullying. We go on to find out that she was actually assaulted. So A will kill people he deems guilty of those crimes. The janitor was just collateral. At first, the girls assume that A is just Karen messing with them, so they come up with a plan to not kill her, but publicly destroy her. As girls do. Imogen apparently has a video of Karen at a party that would ruin her reputation, and before you get completely horrified, it is still horrific, but it's not a sex tape. It's a video of Karen during the party where her boyfriend made a move on Imogen, so she gets drunk and starts talking shit while this Tyler guy football player records and encourages her, until she pulls her shirt up just as Imogen walks in to stop it. And apparently she's just held on to this phone and the video for months and is now getting Tabby to broadcast at the theater's double feature of Get Out and Us, and that is fucked. And a felony, I'm pretty sure. Like, the only upside here is that they didn't just anonymously send it out to the entire school, like no one else has copies of the video. But guys, even if you did think she did all that stuff to herself to get you in trouble, this is a massive escalation. So she's obviously devastated by this, and she and Kelly start plotting their own revenge plan, which is just Carrie with paint. A classic. However, before Karen can dump the bucket of paint, we get this very drawn out scene of all the girls and only the girls noticing Karen up there and desperately trying to get Imogen to look up while Karen's just peekabooing through the rafters. Peekaboo! Again, it's the little things that bring me joy. But just as Imogen looks up, fucking Leatherface Myers is up there pushing Karen to her death, looking a lot like Angela's. This ultimately results in the girls being accused of bullying Karen to suicide because Kelly implies that it might not have been an accident, and seeing as Karen's dad is the sheriff, he's coming down on them with full unhinged wrath. Not that they don't deserve some kind of severe punishment for leaking that video, but you know, it's a conversation for another day. Not on this show though, that's obviously not gonna be anything. They're just lucky that Wes took the drive of the video before the cops could find it, you know, beyond him using it to manipulate Tabby into a date at his house. So the girls, who now know A isn't Karen, realize that they're being tormented by some kind of demented killer who wants to make sure they don't tell anyone what's happening. That particular death drama is pretty much settled in the same episode though. Kelly realizes that her dad's on a full warpath for prison, so she admits to the principal that Karen was up there to hurt Imogen. But outside of all that, her death sparks up some weird drama. Farron starts to think that Kelly is actually Karen. They've switched places to mess with people before, so Karen is pretending to be Kelly for some reason I don't know. She starts to believe this when Kelly starts using Karen's old dance locker, starts making out with Karen's boyfriend Greg, is suddenly a better dancer.
It's almost like I'm dancing with Karen again.
Issue here though is that Kelly absolutely had to have been a great dancer already. She was given the role of the White Swan, while Karen got the role of the Queen. So by all evidence, Kelly was already a better dancer. But ignoring that, what's going on with Kelly seems to be more of like a reaction to her being seen as the inferior twin by her parents, and then actually losing that twin sister, and it's just kind of built into some kind of trauma reaction that is only being made worse by Farron's crusade, which ultimately ends up losing Farron the role of Black Swan again. But there is so much jumping around with who's playing what in that ballet that it really doesn't matter. She gets the role back after Kelly backs out because she was hunted down by A trying to make sure he killed the right twin. Clearly he also heard the theory. Kelly obviously assumes this was Farron messing with her, so she backs out. But Kelly was also involved in some of those bully activities. And Karen's bullying only escalated as a result of A's actions, and technically the girls committed like a very big bullying act by trying to get revenge on Karen for something Karen didn't even do. There's just a lot of mixed morals here. But he also ends up killing Tyler here because it's implied that he might force girls into situations they don't want to be in, and he was the one who filmed Karen. But I think this is a good time to segue into who Angela was and the sins of the mothers. Sorry, that shirt was actually pretty hot. I know I keep changing, but like I feel like this is also fitting based on the book The Woodsboro Murders by Gail Weathers. So Angela was just a girl from a troubled home life whose only sin was wanting to be liked and to fit in with people that instead of just leaving her alone to make other friends, preferred to torture and antagonize her on every level. Yes, Angela probably should have just found new friends on her own, but teenagers struggle. Bringing us to the sins of the mothers. So as A is progressively tormenting the group, we find out what each of the mothers did to antagonize Angela. So other than her jumping to her death and finding out she was assaulted, the other big piece of horrific information we find out is that no one called the cops after she jumped. So she was just there on the floor, dead for days until someone found her body. That is disgusting. And while it was a group effort, each of the mom does have one specific story that ties into everything that compounded into Angela's death. Noah's mom, Marjorie, blames Angela for her cigarette, which is a nice little parallel for making her daughter take the blame for her drugs. Farron's mom, Corey, convinces her to get a tattoo, swearing she'll get one too, but then bailing even though she knew Angela's religious mom would freak out. And I think that one is particularly fucked up. Angela permanently scarred by her own actions, which is essentially what she ended up doing to her own daughter, Farron. Mouse's mom, Elodie, was having a secret relationship with Angela, but when someone caught them, she just tried to say that Angela forced herself on her, which is horrible and super fucked. I also really hate this mom as an adult. Honestly, all the moms suck except for Tabby's mom, Sydney, who didn't get Angela proper help when she confided in her that she'd been sexually assaulted. Sydney told the other girls, but didn't do anything directly to help, which is something she wants to fix with her daughter. I don't actually think this one's that bad. Teenagers don't know how to handle certain situations or what to do. I think that this is a far cry difference from getting someone to get a tattoo. Teenage girls, man, holy shit. Though Sydney's mom's way of trying to advocate for her daughter is when she assumes that it was Wes that did it, she confronts him.
How old are you anyway, 30?
I'm in my 20s.
But then just lets Tabby go back to work after they clarify that he wasn't the one who actually assaulted her. He just made a move on her one time.
Made a move on her one time. And I apologize.
That's it, motherfucker. I'm calling the police.
I think my parents would have at least made sure he got fired. And Imogen's mom, Davy, the Regina George light of the group, got her to launch a poop bag at a house and then drove away. But the really messed up thing that ties into her is what happened after the assault. Apparently, it was Davy's boyfriend, Tom Beasley, aka the sheriff, that assaulted Angela. And instead of listening to her and getting her help, Davy decides she lied and erases her, as in she convinces the entire school to pretend that she doesn't exist, like that one episode of Recess. I know that some of this stuff on paper seems pretty basic, but you've got to think of yourself in the mentality of a teenager after all of these things have happened to you, and a group that you were so desperate to see as your friend then just starts icing you out in that way, and then no one believes that this traumatic event happened to you. That's rough.
Imogen, no one was kinder to Angela than your mother. She was the best of us.
Well, don't think you can come on to me next, Xena.
Okay, if Davy was the best of you, I don't know what that says about the rest of you. Now, all of this was revealed to us as the episodes are progressing, but then they feel the need to recap the whole thing to us in episode 9. Do you really think that your audience can't remember something that they were told this very season that was released over the course of a single month? Either way, it's also revealed that Angela's mom, Rose, had a mental break and was sent to Radley because, obviously. But the girls would all go on to regularly spend time visiting her there, I guess as some kind of amends. But now it's time to put it all together. Just to recap, because there's a lot going on. We got moms who were mean to a girl who then jumps off the rafters, and now someone years later, decades later, is tormenting those girls' daughters because of the death, and it's gonna tie in somehow. And then there's all these other interesting side stories going on. So for theories of who is A, for a bit they seem fairly certain that it's this Joe guy who was obsessed with Angela, but A just set him up to take the fall so he can execute the last part of his plan. Yeah, that's a whole other side plot where he tries to kill Imogen. There's too much. It's not Beasley because they find out that he's the one who assaulted Angela, and Mrs. Beasley stabs him to protect Kelly because it seems like he was gonna murder-suicide the whole family. But we do get at least some closure going into the conclusion. They come up with a plan to catch Imogen and Tabby's attacker, one that would not work in any distant dizzy dream. They plan to grab cotton swabs from the blood drive and random samples from the boys' locker room and test them to match the DNA of Imogen's baby that isn't born yet. Do we really think she's gonna get a prenatal DNA test done with nothing concrete to match it against in America when it's established that her mom left her with a ton of debt? Cross-contamination aside, this poses a bunch of issues even with Noah's mom helping. But whatever, they get a match on a batch of the tests somehow. how. And it's making Tabby reconsider Chip. She remembers a moment at a party, the party that Imogen was assaulted at, that Chip made a move on her, but Tabby shut him down. You know, her not gay BFF who's now been dating Imogen.
I spend all of my time watching weird, esoteric movies in my basement.
And it turns out it was Chip, that he assaulted Imogen after Tabby turned him down and then got pissed off that Tabby was drunk and vulnerable around all those football guys and felt that she was his to take. Now let's just take a second to realize the extra layer of fucked up here. Beyond the fact that he has remained her best friend this entire time. He then did it to a completely different girl and then dated her and then went with her to an adoption agency to figure out what to do with the baby. Something that at first seemed really sweet and kind and helpful, but then it's just super fucked when you realize that he is the dad. But then A shows up and they divert him onto Chip because they seem to understand his morals.
He hurt us the same way Tom Beasley hurt Angela Waters.
So that's Chip taken care of, I guess. But it seems like A is ready to make his final play, so they decide to check the Waters house one more time to see if Imogen missed anything on her missions. So they finally actually check inside the cage and realize it has crayons in it, implying that there was a kid kept inside, and they find height markings to denote 2 A's in the house.
You mean possibly a secret deformed brother no one talks about, like in People Under the Stairs?
I knew it was a sibling! But as they're looking for clues, all their moms get nabbed, so they have to head to the school for the finale. So this part is dumb. A also kidnapped their bullies and gave them revenge instructions. But calling Chip a bully seems pretty fucking light here, my guys. Mouse gets Steves, who should be in police questioning right now, like, excuse me, he held her captive? Noah gets her mom's drug dealer. Her revenge is the only one that seems lethal. But Farron ends up with Madame Giry, and it's implied that she bullied her to perfection, but that was Farron's mom. If you wanted to do this accurately, it would be Farron's mom strapped in there. All Imogen has to do is get some papers out of her mom's corpse's mouth. Okay, yeah, that's traumatizing. But none of them do the revenge. I don't even know why they wasted time with this. Look, other than the overdose, which I'm pretty sure we could have finagled in a different way, I would have done all of these. Like, that is child's play to save my mother's life. So A commends them for showing mercy, but this whole thing has been a revenge game. What mercy? It's just so stupid. But it's finally time to reveal A, and it's the fucking principal. Well, the mastermind is A, the leather Michael Myers knockoff is Angela's twin Archie. I'm beyond done. Jesus Christ. But apparently the principal is Angela's dad. He knocked up Rose, his family paid her off, and he didn't see her again until she enrolled Angela at Millwood. So how did their house have height markers if they had to leave Millwood? And apparently Archie just wasn't allowed to leave the house.
That he had a face only a mother could love.
I'm sorry, but anything that needs to drop this much backstory in the last 20-ish minutes of a finale is just weak storytelling. There are light clues that could suggest that the principal is involved, but I don't need this trip down memory lane again. Also, he delivered all these lines really bad. I guess his master plan was to pin this all on Sheriff Beasley, which is why he hasn't directly gone at him for the assault, and I hate it. Yes, it explains a lot of the how does A know this questions and how their detention was so coordinated, but no. This is also where they confirmed that they didn't kill Davy. And that's something I would like to see retconned. I really don't think she would have left Imogen pregnant and alone. But because Davy took herself out of the game early,
the sins of the mother must fall upon the child.
Yep, they're gonna murder a kid who's about to pop out a baby because her mom was mean to someone in high school. I also just don't think Archie would go along with this. But from here, we just get a bunch of flashbacks to Imogen's mom telling her all these different life lessons, so she runs off to her house. Douche starts talking about a sacrifice that would prevent what happened to Angela from happening again. Like, were they gonna do some kind of, like, sacrifice ritual to end bullying? We'll never know. Tabby knocks him out. Obviously, Imogen prevails. Her water breaks. I am shocked at how mobile she was with these contractions, but Archie isn't dead. It might have something to do with the fact that his blood was actually paint, but who knows? But this is where the show decides to reveal who's adopting Imogen's baby, and it's a nice couple. Authors, apparently. They own a bookstore?
Their names are Ari and Ezra.
Are you kidding me? No! Lucy! No! No! Also, so much for taking a stand against age gap, power dynamic relationships. Jesus Christ! And just when everything looks like it's resolving up nice, Archie breaks free, kills Beasley proper, and hunts down Chip. There are morals in action. What a stupid ending. Like, the very end there was kind of fun, but oh my god. Obviously wide open for a season 2. Archie's still on the loose. We still need to find out what's going on with him and what happened to Angela on the way to the dance. There were some theories that she might have been pregnant and maybe suffered a miscarriage on the way, but I don't know. Seems like it would be pretty pointless to dredge that up in another season. Then what the hell was the sacrifice he was talking about? Was there actually going to be some kind of ritual? Seeing as we're in the Riverdale universe, it opens them up. Lots for them to dive into, I guess, but then it still works as a one and done. Yeah, I'm sorry, like some of that really worked, but it was also just very dumb. There were glimmers of something, but most of the girls' side stories are more interesting than any of the main conflicts. Like Creepo with the deformed leather mask is hunting you? Okay, you can chill in the corner. I want to know what the hell's going on with Steve. Like, I honestly didn't give a shit about uncovering A, I just wanted to know who the assaulter was. There's also just a ton of other dumb things that I didn't even mention, like Imogen spending all the money to save her house on getting information about Angela out of Joe and going to Radley. Tyler going missing barely became a conflict. Bed with ropes tied to it. There's this corpse in the Waters house that I assume is the mom, Rose Waters, but who knows? Roberto says it's real. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it. Somehow this got away from me in a way that I don't even know if it makes sense anymore. I had a very clear plan of attack, but now this is what you have. Maybe it's time to just let the liars die. And I say that as someone who, I have some soft, fond memories of Pretty Little Liars, but let me know what you guys are thinking down below. I'm sure a lot of people did really love this. I just felt that it had a lot of issues. But thank you all so much for watching. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing. All my social medias will be down below. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later.